In the infinite quiet of the cosmos, every star is a whisper, and every planet a secret. The Milky Way is a forest of light, billions of suns tangled in invisible webs of gravity, yet behind this beauty lies a silence more profound than any wilderness on Earth. We have searched, listened, and called out for decades, and the universe has not answered. But what if this silence is not emptiness? What if it is fear? What if every civilization hides, holding its breath in the dark? If every mind in the cosmos is a hunter, and every flicker of radio light a giveaway of position, then calling out could mean extinction. Like and subscribe if you love stories that merge science with wonder, and join us as we descend into the dark forest. Let's begin. For over half a century, humanity has listened to the sky, expecting company. The SETI dishes turn endlessly toward the stars, but all we receive is a sea of static, no songs, no messages, just silence, so complete it feels intentional. Each night, great metal ears tilt toward infinity, vast parabolic dishes scattered across deserts and mountaintops, listening to the oldest music in the universe. The hum of hydrogen atoms, the pulse of quasars, the faint crackle of cosmic background radiation, the afterglow of creation itself. Among all this noise, scientists search for one pattern that doesn't belong, a whisper shaped by intelligence, a signal that says, "We are here too." But the static never changes. The cosmos remains silent, indifferent, endless. This silence is not what we expected. When we first turned our instruments toward the stars, optimism filled the air. The Drake equation seemed to promise countless civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy, each one shining with the fire of thought. Surely, we reasoned, someone out there must be trying to communicate. Surely we would hear something within a few years, a beacon, a pulse, a message encoded in mathematics. But decades passed. We built bigger telescopes, more sensitive receivers, faster computers. Still, nothing. The universe refused to speak. Some call it the Great Silence. Others, the Eerie Void. It is not merely the absence of sound. It's the presence of uncertainty. The kind of silence that makes you question whether you're truly alone or being quietly watched. The kind of silence that suggests not emptiness, but intent, as if the cosmos itself were holding its breath. In the control rooms of observatories, that silence has a texture. You can almost feel it pressing through the headphones, a low hiss of cosmic radiation, punctuated only by the occasional burst from a distant pulsar. Every astronomer who listens long enough begins to sense the same unease. The quiet is too perfect, too uniform, too complete to be chance. It's easy to forget that we ourselves have been speaking into that void for over a century. Every radio transmission, every TV broadcast, every radar ping from a distant satellite, all of it radiates outward at the speed of light, forming an ever-expanding bubble of human noise. To any listener within 100 light years, Earth would be a faint but unmistakable beacon of artificial sound, and yet no one has replied. Perhaps no one can hear us. Perhaps civilizations are too rare, or too far apart, or live for too brief a moment before their own voices fade. Or perhaps they choose not to answer. Maybe they hear our signals, study them, and turn away. Because in a universe where survival may depend on silence, responding could be an act of self-destruction. The silence is more than scientific mystery, it's existential poetry. It forces us to confront the possibility that intelligence is both a gift and a curse. That consciousness itself may be a fleeting spark, destined to burn quietly and vanish before another can see its light. As our instruments become more sensitive, as new telescopes peer deeper into the sky, we may one day learn the truth behind this cosmic quiet. But until then, we listen. We wait. And in that waiting, humanity becomes part of the silence itself, a young civilization standing at the edge of infinity, whispering into the dark, hoping that somewhere, someone is listening back. If the universe is ancient and vast and intelligent life inevitable, then where is everyone? This single question, posed by Enrico Fermi over lunch in 1950s, remains the most haunting in all of science. It's a deceptively simple question, asked casually between bites of lunch, yet it splits the cosmos open. Fermi looked up from his calculations, surrounded by colleagues who had just been discussing UFOs and interstellar travel, and asked the question that would echo through generations of scientists. If there are billions of stars older than our sun, why hasn't anyone visited us? By all logic, the galaxy should be overflowing with civilizations. The Milky Way is over 13 billion years old. There has been more than enough time for intelligent life to evolve, expand, and colonize every star system many times over. Even if a single civilization developed the ability to travel between the stars, it could spread across the galaxy in just a few million years, a blink in cosmic time. Yet we see no evidence of them, no signals, no probes, no visitors, nothing. This contradiction, the high probability of extraterrestrial life versus the total lack of evidence, is the heart of what we now call the Fermi Paradox. It is both a scientific puzzle and a philosophical mirror, reflecting our own fears, hopes, and assumptions about existence itself. Over the decades, countless explanations have been proposed. Some argue that life is extraordinarily rare, a cosmic fluke that may have happened only once. Others believe civilizations destroy themselves before they can reach the stars, consumed by war, technology, or apathy. Perhaps the great filter stands between us and them, a hidden barrier that almost no species can cross. But there are stranger possibilities. Maybe advanced life is everywhere, but we're simply not looking correctly. Maybe their technology is beyond our comprehension, or so subtle that it blends with natural phenomena. Some have even suggested that we live in a kind of galactic quarantine, a cosmic zoo where we are watched but never contacted, left to evolve without interference. And yet, beneath all these theories lies a deeper, quieter implication. Maybe the silence isn't a mystery to be solved, but a warning to be understood. In a universe that rewards caution, perhaps the first species to reveal itself becomes the first to vanish. Fermi's question lingers because it forces us to confront both our insignificance and our vulnerability. It reminds us that we may not be early explorers, but late survivors, that the galaxy might already be littered with the ruins of those who spoke too soon. Even now, every new exoplanet we discover feels like a potential answer. Each world, glowing faintly in the cold dark, could hold the remnants of a civilization that once looked at its own sky and wondered the same thing. Where is everyone? Maybe they're gone, maybe they're hiding, or maybe they're watching quietly, waiting for us to realize the same truth they once did, that in the dark forest of the cosmos, the first sound you make might also be your last. There are more planets than grains of sand on Earth. The Milky Way alone could hold 1 trillion worlds. Statistically, there should be millions of civilizations. Yet we see no signs. Something is wrong. Every night, the sky above us glows with ancient light. Each star we see, each tiny spark in the black sea of space, hosts its own retinue of planets, worlds orbiting like clockwork around cosmic fires. From icy gas giants to molten super-Earths, the variety is staggering. The James Webb Space Telescope has already revealed atmospheres thick with clouds, oceans glinting beneath alien suns, and chemical fingerprints hinting at life's raw ingredients. The universe is not empty. It is abundant, and yet, somehow, utterly silent. When we first began to understand the scale of the cosmos, optimism filled the air. Astronomers calculated that even if only a fraction of stars hosted habitable planets, and even if only a fraction of those produced life, there should still be countless civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy. By the laws of probability, we shouldn't be alone. The numbers demand company. It is this abundance that deepens the mystery. For every one of those trillion planets, there were billions of years, billions of chances, for life to rise, adapt, and gaze back at the stars. Given enough time, even the improbable becomes inevitable. Somewhere, among that endless ocean of worlds, something else must have evolved the will to wonder. So where are they? Some scientists suggest that we've simply arrived too early, that the universe is still young, and life has only just begun to bloom. Others imagine that we are latecomers, the survivors of a universe that once teemed with civilizations now extinct. A few propose that advanced beings are out there, but they exist on scales of time or consciousness that we can't perceive, like whales ignoring the faint vibrations of plankton drifting by. Still, the question gnaws at us. With so many stars, so many possibilities, shouldn't the galaxy shimmer with the unmistakable signatures of life? Radio signals, spacecraft, colossal structures harnessing the energy of suns, but instead we find a void so deep it echoes. Perhaps the explanation is far simpler and far more unsettling. Maybe intelligent life doesn't last long. Maybe every civilization that reaches our level of technology eventually faces the same self-inflicted crisis. Nuclear war, ecological collapse, artificial intelligence beyond control. Perhaps the very tools that allow a species to broadcast its existence also sow the seeds of its destruction. The numbers promise a crowded cosmos, yet our telescopes find only emptiness. Each new discovery of an exoplanet, each world potentially like ours, doesn't comfort us anymore. It amplifies the paradox. Every planet that could harbour life reminds us that life should be everywhere. And if it isn't, something must be erasing it. We stand on a living world, surrounded by an ocean of dead ones. The possibilities are endless, but so are the dangers. Somewhere in that staggering abundance lies the truth of why the universe feels so still. Maybe it's not that we're alone. Maybe it's that every other voice has already gone quiet. Somewhere between the spark of life and the rise of intelligence, most civilizations vanish. The Great Filter is not a wall, it's a silent culling, and we don't yet know if it's behind us or ahead. Imagine the history of the universe as a vast river, flowing for nearly 14 billion years. Along its course, there are countless eddies, worlds where life could have emerged, but for reasons we don't fully understand, the river runs quiet. Somewhere along the stream of evolution, most branches end abruptly. Civilizations do not persist. They vanish before their voices can reach the stars. The Great Filter is the most chilling explanation for the Fermi Paradox. It suggests that while life may be common, intelligent life, technological, spacefaring life, is extraordinarily rare because something almost always destroys it before it matures. It could be a cosmic inevitability, an evolutionary bottleneck that very few ever survive. Perhaps the filter lies behind us. Maybe life's origin itself, the leap from chemistry to biology, is so improbable that it has only happened once. In that case, we are the miracle, the lone voice in an otherwise lifeless galaxy. But there's another possibility, one that keeps astronomers awake at night. Maybe the filter is still ahead of us. Maybe every civilization that reaches our level of technology eventually triggers its own extinction. Nuclear fire, engineered pandemics, artificial intelligence run amok, environmental collapse. The list is long, and each item terrifyingly plausible. It's a sobering thought that the silence of the stars may be the universe's graveyard, a memorial to those who came before us and failed. Worlds that once glowed with cities and signals, now dark and silent, their oceans boiling or frozen under skies that will never see another sunrise. The Great Filter doesn't announce itself. It doesn't roar or warn. It happens quietly, as civilizations reach a tipping point, where intelligence becomes power, and power becomes fragility. One wrong choice, one runaway technology, one act of desperation, and the lights go out forever. And yet, the very fact that we're here, listening and wondering, might mean something extraordinary. It might mean we've already passed through it. Maybe the great filter was the leap from single-celled life to multicellular organisms, or from instinct to thought. Perhaps consciousness itself is the rarest miracle, and we've already crossed the hardest barrier. Still, we can't be sure. Every breakthrough humanity achieves, nuclear energy, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, could be the step that leads us closer to survival, or to the same oblivion that claimed countless others. If the great filter lies behind us, we are the universe's lucky survivors. But if it lies ahead, we are already walking toward it, unknowingly, inevitably, our every technological triumph lighting the path to our own extinction. The silence of the cosmos might not be absence, it might be warning. A whisper from the ruins of those who reach too far, too fast. And as we stare out into the stars, wondering who's out there, we might be looking at our own reflection in the darkness. Civilizations that burned brightly for a moment, then faded into eternal night. Imagine a civilization just beginning, its first fires burning under alien skies. Each spark of progress, each leap in technology, brings it closer to being noticed and perhaps destroyed. On a distant world, a creature gazes up for the first time, not with fear, but with curiosity. It sees patterns in the stars. It learns to shape tools from stone, to capture fire, to tame the wilderness around it. In that moment, a civilization is born, and with it, a signal, faint but inevitable, that something new has begun to think. The first light of technology is always a beacon. It starts small, the warmth of a flame, the rhythm of a drum, the hum of an early machine. But eventually, it grows brighter. Metal gleams, energy burns, cities ignite the night. The darkness of one small world recedes, replaced by the glow of thought, invention, and ambition. Yet in the vastness of space, that light is more than illumination, it's an announcement. A whisper into the cosmic wilderness. We are here. To us, this light feels like triumph. To others, if others exist, it might look like a flare of danger. In a universe that may reward silence, the first light of intelligence could also be the first sign of vulnerability. Every flame that rises higher casts a longer shadow. If the dark forest theory is true, then each civilization's birth is both a beginning and a countdown. From the instant it emits detectable energy, radio waves, heat, or atmospheric changes, it exposes its position. Its noise ripples outward at the speed of light, carrying the story of its existence to anyone or anything watching. Here on Earth, that moment came just over a century ago. Since then, an expanding sphere of electromagnetic noise has grown to nearly 200 light-years across, brushing past nearby stars, washing over alien worlds. For any advanced observer within that sphere, Earth would now shine like a faint but unmistakable flare in the night. For them, our early transmissions would be history lessons. The first Morse code signals, the crackle of jazz-age broadcasts, the echo of our wars, our laughter, our confusion, all carried outward, woven into the tapestry of cosmic static. It's a haunting thought. Somewhere out there, our first light may have already reached a watcher who now knows we exist. But for civilizations older than ours, this is a familiar pattern. Every world that climbs out of its primordial dark eventually faces the same moment, when knowledge becomes exposure, when curiosity becomes risk. The first fire that warms also beckons predators. Perhaps that's why the cosmos appears so silent. Maybe every intelligence that once shone brightly learned, too late, that the first light is a signal best extinguished. Some may have hidden themselves, cloaking their planets in quiet technology. Others may not have had the chance. Every dawn is beautiful, but not all are safe. The first light of thought may always come with a cost, the moment a species becomes visible in the dark forest of the stars. And as our own light grows brighter, perhaps we too are being seen by eyes that do not blink. Proposed by Chinese author Liu Cixin, it suggests the cosmos is not empty, but predatory. Every civilization is a hunter in a dark forest, listening for others, but never daring to speak. Imagine the universe as an infinite forest at night. Every tree is a star, and every branch is a planet. Hidden among the trunks are countless hunters, civilizations that have evolved, built tools, and learned to see in the dark. They move carefully, silently, knowing that a single noise could betray their position. In this forest, there is no law, no diplomacy, no mercy, only survival. This is the essence of the dark forest theory. It argues that the reason we have heard nothing from the cosmos is not because no one is out there, but because everyone is hiding. In a universe where resources are finite and the intentions of others unknowable, every intelligent species must assume the worst. Every sound could be a trap. Every light, a target. To speak is to reveal your location. To reveal your location is to risk annihilation. The only rational choice, then, is silence. This is not pessimism, it's game theory written across the stars. If two civilizations exist in the same galaxy, separated by light years and bound by mutual ignorance, each must decide how to act. They can either remain silent, or they can reach out, but to reach out is to expose oneself to an unknown power that may see survival as a zero-sum game. The safest assumption is that the other will strike first. So every species listens, hides, and waits, hoping never to be found. In Liu Cixin's haunting vision, the night sky is not a field of peaceful stars, but a living battlefield. Each civilization is a hunter with trembling hands, holding its breath, afraid to light a fire. The silence we observe may not be emptiness at all. It may be the sound of billions of civilizations obeying the same ancient rule. Do not speak unless you wish to die. What makes this theory so unsettling is how logical it feels. On Earth, history shows the same pattern. When two civilizations meet for the first time, the result is rarely peaceful. The more advanced consumes the less advanced. The unknown is feared, and fear breeds preemptive violence. Scale that pattern up to a cosmic level, and the dark forest becomes not just plausible but inevitable. Perhaps this is why we see no Dyson spheres, no interstellar empires lighting the void. Any civilization bright enough to be noticed may have been erased long ago by another that chose to strike first. Those who survived learned to hide, to dampen their signals, to cloak their worlds, to become invisible among the stars. And so, the forest remains quiet. The hunters still move in the dark, cautious and unseen. Our telescopes scan the trees, searching for a flicker of light, unaware that our own fire, our radio signals, our probes, our ambitions may already have marked our position. We are not standing at the edge of the forest, we are in it. Surrounded by shadows, watched by unseen eyes. The question is not whether anyone else is out there, but whether they've already seen us and chosen not to respond. In the vastness of space, survival is simple. Reveal your location and you risk annihilation. Advanced civilizations may not announce themselves for the same reason prey does not sing in the night. Space, for all its beauty, is not a sanctuary, it's a wilderness. A boundless expanse where the rules of survival remain unchanged from the jungles of Earth. Be silent, stay hidden, or be found. To exist is to be visible. And in the cold vacuum between the stars, visibility can be fatal. The more we study the universe, the more we realize how easily a civilization can vanish. A single relativistic missile, no larger than a pebble, moving near the speed of light, could vaporize an entire planet without warning. A beam of focused energy, invisible and silent, could erase a biosphere before it ever knew it was under attack. No heroic battles, no second chances. Just absence. That is the logic of the cosmos. Not malice, not hatred, just survival. In the dark forest, every civilization must assume two things. that life will seek to preserve itself, and that others are capable of destroying it. These simple assumptions lead to a terrifying conclusion. If two civilizations ever detect each other, the safest move is to eliminate the other first. From this perspective, silence becomes an act of intelligence, a kind of evolutionary wisdom. To remain unseen is to remain alive. The most advanced species may be the quietest of all, their technology devoted not to exploration, but concealment. Bending light, masking heat, minimizing every whisper of energy that could give away their position. Our telescopes search for bright beacons, colossal engineering feats, and glowing alien megastructures, but perhaps that's why we find nothing. Maybe the true masters of the galaxy are those who learn the one rule that guarantees survival: do not shine. When we imagine alien life, we often picture it as curious, benevolent, reaching out with open hands. But evolution doesn't reward optimism, it rewards caution. A civilization that believes all others are friendly won't last long in a universe that might not be. On Earth, every ecosystem tells the same story. In the ocean's depths, the brightest creatures are often the bait. In the savannah, the loudest call attracts predators. The most successful survivors are the quiet ones, the invisible ones, those who blend into their environment. Now imagine that logic applied not to animals, but to civilizations spanning light years. The pattern doesn't change, it only scales. Perhaps this is why our sky is silent. The silence isn't the absence of life, it's the strategy of life. Every advanced species learns, through experience or catastrophe, that survival means restraint, that the greatest danger is not the darkness itself, but what may already be moving within it. We gaze out at the stars, hoping to find neighbors. But if the dark forest theory is true, then every glittering light above us is not a promise, it's a warning. Somewhere out there, ancient eyes may already be watching, waiting, calculating. And in their silence, we might finally understand the truth, that in a universe filled with predators, the only safe sound is none at all. Every civilization faces the same terrifying logic. You can never know another species' intentions. And in a universe without trust, the safest action is preemptive silence or preemptive strike. This is the cold equation of the cosmos, the one that every intelligent mind must eventually solve. It begins innocently, with curiosity, the desire to know what lies beyond the next world, the next star, the next galaxy. But the more a civilization looks outward, the more it realizes the same dreadful truth. Intelligence is both the rarest and most dangerous thing in the universe. For even if life is common, communication is perilous. Between stars separated by light years, misunderstanding isn't just likely, it's inevitable. There can be no diplomacy, no conversation, no shared language that evolves slowly over time. Every message we send into the dark takes decades, centuries, or millennia to arrive. Every response would come too late. The gulf between us is not only physical, it is temporal, and in that delay lies infinite danger. Imagine two civilizations, each separated by 1,000 light years. One detects the other's radio emissions, a pattern too structured to be natural. They know someone is out there, but what they don't know is intent. Are they explorers, philosophers, predators? Are they peaceful or preparing? There is no way to know. And in a universe governed by physics, where the first strike is always decisive, fear becomes logic. In this cosmic standoff, the only winning move may be silence, because trust in a universe without guarantees is suicide. To announce your presence is to gamble everything on the hope that the unknown is kind, and hope is not a strategy for survival. This logic extends beyond science. It mirrors the deepest instincts of life itself. On Earth, even the simplest creatures understand it. A rustle in the grass could mean food or death. Most species assume the worst, because those that didn't are no longer here to wonder. Fear, in its purest form, is nature's oldest defense mechanism. Scaled up to the level of civilizations, it becomes policy. The logic of fear explains why the stars remain silent. It's not that no one is there, it's that everyone is afraid. Every civilization, no matter how wise or benevolent, must eventually confront the same equation. Act first and risk damnation, or wait and risk extinction. Some may have chosen isolation, retreating into digital worlds, their entire species surviving inside encrypted simulations beyond detection. Others may have struck first, obliterating potential threats across light years with weapons of unimaginable precision. The outcome is the same: the loud disappear and the cautious endure. We like to imagine that intelligence brings compassion, that the more advanced a species becomes, the kinder it will be. But intelligence does not erase fear. It perfects it. It calculates it. It refines it into strategy. And in the infinite black ocean of the cosmos, even compassion must yield to survival. Perhaps that is the true tragedy of the universe, not that life is rare, but that fear is universal. It binds us all, humans, aliens, and every consciousness that has ever stared into the dark and wondered who else might be out there. And so, we remain quiet, listening, waiting, hoping that the silence we hear is not the aftermath of fear, but its uneasy peace. In 1901, Marconi sent the first radio signal across the Atlantic. Since then, our planet has been glowing in radio light, a beacon announcing our existence to the galaxy. It began as a spark, just a brief crackle of static leaping across the ocean air. But that spark marked the moment humanity learned to whisper beyond sight. The world suddenly became smaller, and the sky, for the first time, began to glow with the fingerprints of our presence. Within a few short decades, Earth transformed into a living transmitter, its surface wrapped in a web of electromagnetic noise. Every broadcast we've ever sent, every radio show, radar ping, television signal, and satellite transmission ripples outward into space at the speed of light. Together, they form an expanding bubble of human sound, nearly 200 light-years wide. It grows larger every day, sweeping silently across the void, brushing past nearby stars. To any distant listener, our world would shimmer faintly with artificial order, a steady pulse of information unlike anything found in nature. We call this invisible sphere the radio bubble. Within it lies the entire history of our modern civilization. If an alien receiver were tuned just right, they might hear the faint ghost of Roosevelt's voice declaring war in 1941, the Beatles playing live in 1964, the static-laden countdown of Apollo 11, even the laughter of long-forgotten sitcoms drifting endlessly between the stars. Our story, encoded in waves, now travels far beyond the home that birthed it. But with that transmission comes a paradox. While we send these signals freely, almost thoughtlessly, we have no idea who or what might be listening. What began as a triumph of communication has become an accidental flare in the night, a cosmic lighthouse that cannot be dimmed. Our earliest signals were omnidirectional, loud and wasteful. They spread in all directions, carrying our existence to anyone within earshot. But over time, our technology has grown quieter. Modern communication is more focused, digital, compressed, directed towards satellites rather than the stars. Slowly, our planet's broadcast glow is dimming. We are learning, without meaning to, how to hide. And yet, our oldest signals remain. They travel on, unstoppable, each one a message in a bottle drifting through the cosmic ocean. If someone, somewhere, receives them centuries from now, they will learn not only that we existed, but when. Because radio waves carry time within them, every transmission is a fragment of the past, frozen in motion. To an observer 100 light-years away, Earth is still young, its people just stepping into the age of flight, unaware of the nuclear fire and digital dawn to come. It's humbling to realize that we have already announced ourselves to the cosmos without ever meaning to. We are like children shouting into a cave, not realizing how vast the darkness is or what might be listening. Perhaps one day our signals will reach a world where another intelligence listens in silence, weighing the decision we have already made. The decision to speak, to be seen, and maybe they will whisper to one another under alien skies the same thought we now wrestle with. In a universe that hunts by sound, who dares to make the first noise? Our radio leakage has formed an expanding sphere 200 light-years wide. Any civilization within that bubble could already know we exist. Imagine an invisible shell growing outward from our planet, an ever-expanding wavefront of human sound, history, and curiosity. Every song ever sung, every news broadcast, every radar pulse and command sent to spacecraft, all are carried by that bubble, racing across the darkness at the speed of light. To us, the sky looks silent, but to an alien astronomer living within that sphere, Earth would already stand out as something strange, an otherwise ordinary planet, glowing faintly with the pulse of deliberate communication. Inside that 200 light-year bubble are thousands of stars. Many of them host planets. Some of those planets may orbit within habitable zones, where liquid water could exist, where life could arise. Statistically, that means dozens, perhaps hundreds of worlds might already be aware of us. They might have detected the rhythm of our transmissions, recognized the pattern as artificial, and marked our coordinates in their star maps. To them, our planet would be labeled simply as active. The bubble grows larger with every passing year. Its surface sweeps across space like a luminous tide, reaching farther into the galaxy, 1 light-year per year, forever expanding, never fading completely. The earliest layers of this shell carry our most primitive voices, crackling Morse code, wartime speeches, the grainy sound of early television. Deeper inside are decades of evolving noise, rock music, digital chatter, satellite telemetry. Each layer a snapshot of who we were at that moment in time. To any observer, our transmissions would reveal not just that we exist, but what we value. The cadence of our languages, the mathematics behind our engineering, the chaos of our entertainment, it's all encoded in those waves. They would know our atmosphere, our chemistry, our conflicts, our art, our entire species, distilled into electromagnetic whispers. But as this sphere expands, so too does the risk. Because once a civilization knows you exist, it can choose what to do with that knowledge. It can listen quietly and observe. It can attempt to communicate. Or it can mark you as a potential threat, and the terrifying truth is that we would never know. The light from our own transmissions races far ahead of our ability to travel or defend ourselves. We've already exposed our position to the stars, and there's no way to take it back. Still, there's something poetic about it. Our bubble of noise is humanity's first footprint on the cosmic shore, a fragile, flickering echo of our curiosity and hope. We have not yet left the solar system in body, but our voices have already crossed hundreds of trillions of miles. Somewhere, perhaps, our oldest signals are washing over an alien world at this very moment, a faint murmur among the static, a ghostly melody of human laughter and music and war. Maybe it will mean nothing. Or maybe, in some distant control room under a foreign sky, a listener has already leaned closer to their receiver, hearing us for the very first time. Across deserts and mountaintops, telescopes strain to catch the faint hum of distant minds. But perhaps, in their silence, the others are listening to us instead. In the world's most remote places, where the air is thin, the wind sharp, and the human presence barely more than a whisper, great machines listen to the heavens. Vast metal dishes tilt skyward, their curved faces reflecting starlight and cosmic dust. From the Atacama Desert to the plains of Australia, from Puerto Rico's lost Arecibo to China's colossal FAST telescope, these listening posts stand like patient monks, waiting for the universe to speak. Each one is tuned to the faintest of murmurs, tiny ripples in the radio spectrum that could betray the presence of intelligence. They filter through oceans of static, sifting cosmic noise for patterns that nature doesn't make. Repetition, rhythm, code. The data streams endlessly into supercomputers, billions of frequencies monitored in real time, all for the chance, just the chance, to catch a single whisper that says, "You are not alone." The people who operate these instruments speak of silence as though it were alive. They describe nights when the static feels almost sentient, when the absence of a signal hums with weight, as if the stars themselves are holding their breath. For over half a century, these watchful ears have waited, but nothing has ever answered back. And so the question grows heavier with each passing year. What if we're not the listeners? What if we're the signal? Because while we aim our telescopes outward, sending greetings and mathematical invitations into the dark, our planet itself is a transmitter, its electromagnetic heartbeat radiating in every direction. To the cosmos, Earth is the one making noise. We are the ones broadcasting our presence, unshielded, unguarded, unaware of who might be listening. It's a haunting reversal. We think of ourselves as explorers, yet we might be the discovered. The quiet hum of our civilization could already be echoing in alien observatories. Faint but clear, a pulse of structured energy among the stars. They could be mapping us, cataloguing our transmissions, studying our biology from afar. And they might have made the same decision we now wrestle with: to remain silent, to observe but not reply. The universe may be filled not with chatter, but with listeners. Worlds that, like ours, have built their great dishes and aimed them upward, only to learn the same terrible lesson that the cosmos is not a conversation, but a quiet surveillance. Everyone is listening, and no one dares to speak. And perhaps that's why we find only silence. Because on a galactic scale, silence isn't the absence of communication, it is communication. It's the collective understanding, the unspoken pact of survival shared among civilizations too wise to reveal themselves. So, our telescopes keep turning, our computers keep searching, and humanity keeps listening for a voice that may never come. Not because no one is out there, but because they, too, have learned to whisper in a universe that punishes those who make a sound. Some scientists suggest we are being watched, not ignored. Like animals in a preserve, humanity may be under quiet observation, uncontacted for our own protection or for theirs. It is one of the more haunting explanations for the Great Silence, the idea that we are not alone, but quarantined. That advanced civilizations, countless and ancient, know of us already, and have chosen not to interfere. Perhaps they observe us the way we observe endangered species, from a distance, silently, with great care not to alter what they see. The zoo hypothesis, first proposed by astronomer John Ball in the 1970s, imagines the universe as a kind of cosmic wildlife preserve. Intelligent life may be everywhere, but communication is forbidden. The watchers might be bound by a shared rule, a galactic ethic to avoid disturbing emerging civilizations like ours until we reach a certain level of maturity. To them, Earth could be a fragile, primitive world still learning its place in the wider ecosystem. If this is true, then our isolation is not accidental, it is deliberate. The silence we mistake for emptiness could be the quiet of observation. Every message we send, every probe we launch, may be met not with replies, but with quiet surveillance. We might already be surrounded by watchers hidden among the stars, or even closer, here in our own solar system, monitoring our growth the way a biologist studies a new species from behind glass. It's a chilling thought that every radio wave we emit, every act of exploration, is being catalogued and studied. Perhaps when we detonated our first atomic bomb, the observers took note. Perhaps when we set foot on the moon, they whispered among themselves, "They've reached spaceflight." Yet still, they remain silent. Not out of cruelty, but policy. And if they are watching, what are they waiting for? Maybe they are testing us, waiting to see if we can survive our own technology, if we can overcome the filters that have silenced others before. Maybe they fear us, remembering how many times intelligence has turned violent. Or perhaps they simply know that contact changes everything. To reveal themselves, would be to destroy what we are. Our religions, our politics, our sense of self, all would unravel beneath the weight of cosmic truth. We would no longer see ourselves as the center of anything, but as a single thread in a vast, interwoven fabric of life. Civilization might not survive that revelation intact, so they watch and wait and let us believe we are alone. If this hypothesis is right, then the galaxy is not a dark forest of hunters, but a carefully tended sanctuary of silence, a place where young species are left to develop naturally, without interference. Perhaps there are laws older than our world, rules written not in treaties but in caution and wisdom. And maybe, someday, when humanity proves it can live without destroying itself, the silence will finally break. Not with invasion, but invitation. Not with conquest, but communion. A single message might arrive, not to warn or threaten, but to welcome us into the galactic community that has been waiting, quietly, for us to grow up. Until then, we may continue to stare into the stars, hearing nothing. But maybe, just beyond the edge of sight, the watchers are there. You must first learn how to listen. If survival demands secrecy, then every intelligent species must eventually go dark, shutting down transmissions, erasing signs of life, and blending into the cosmic background. The fear equation is the quiet logic that shapes the fate of civilizations. It is the mathematical expression of self-preservation, written not in numbers, but in silence. In its simplest form, it says, the longer a species survives, the quieter it becomes. Because every word, every light, every detectable signal increases the chance that something out there, something older, faster, more ruthless, will notice. For a young civilization, silence feels unnatural. The urge to reach out, to explore, to announce one's existence, is almost instinctual. Communication is the heartbeat of intelligence. But in the cosmic wilderness, that same instinct becomes a liability. The first to speak may not live long enough to hear a reply. It starts with caution. Small steps toward invisibility, a shift from loud radio waves to tight beam lasers. From open broadcasts to encrypted bursts, from glowing cities to subterranean habitats. Slowly, the light of a civilization begins to dim, its energy signature blending into the hum of the background universe. Its once loud voice becomes a whisper, then a murmur, and finally, silence. Perhaps this is why our telescopes find nothing but quiet skies. The fear equation doesn't require cruelty or hostility, only logic. Every species that survives long enough must eventually reach the same conclusion. In a universe where trust is impossible, secrecy is safety. Even we have already begun to follow this path. Our earliest transmissions, bright and wasteful, have faded with time. Modern communications are directional, digital, focused inward towards satellites rather than outward toward the stars. Our light pollution may dazzle our own eyes, but from afar, Earth's electromagnetic glow is shrinking. Without meaning to, we are vanishing. If this pattern holds, it means that the galaxy could be teeming with civilizations, each one hidden, camouflaged, indistinguishable from the cold glow of their suns. Their cities might lie beneath the surfaces of their worlds, their energy buried deep underground. Their communication networks might operate through quantum channels, undetectable by any outside observer. To us, such a galaxy would appear lifeless, but in truth, it would be alive with watchers, all cloaked, all afraid. The silence would not be emptiness. It would be a chorus of fear, perfectly synchronized across millions of light years. The fear equation explains not just why we haven't found anyone, but why we likely never will. Because survival favors those who learn to disappear, those who stay quiet, those who understand that light is both knowledge and danger. And yet, there's something profoundly human about our refusal to obey this cosmic instinct. Despite the risks, we continue to look up, to send probes, to call out into the dark. Maybe we're too young to be afraid yet, Or maybe, deep down, we believe that breaking the silence is worth the risk, that connection, even in a dangerous universe, is the most courageous act of all. But the fear equation remains. It waits for every civilization, patient and absolute. And one day, even we may understand that in the vast ledger of survival, silence is not surrender, it's wisdom. Signals fade as they travel, stretched by time and distance. By the time our messages reach other stars, we ourselves may already be extinct. Light and radio waves move at a speed that feels infinite to us, yet across the cosmic scale, they crawl. Every transmission humanity has ever sent, our greetings, our music, our mistakes, stretches outward through space like ripples across an endless pond. But as they spread, they weaken. Each photon thins into nothingness, stretched by the expansion of the universe, diluted by distance, until it dissolves into the background hiss of creation. It means that even if our messages do reach other civilizations, they will not hear us as we are. They will hear our ghosts, faint, distorted, centuries out of sync, a record of a species that might no longer exist. Imagine a distant planet orbiting a quiet red star, its inhabitants tuning into the cosmos. They detect an unusual pattern. Our transmissions, a pulse of logic, structure, and rhythm too deliberate to be random. For them, this would be a discovery as profound as finding fire. They might celebrate, translate, study us for generations, but by the time their reply travels back, our civilization might have changed beyond recognition or disappeared entirely. That is the strange cruelty of cosmic communication. It's not a conversation, it's archaeology. Every message is a time capsule, and every reply, a message to the dead. Even if we one day hear a signal from an alien world, it will not be a greeting from the present. It will be an artifact of their past. They might have already fallen silent, destroyed themselves, or moved beyond physical existence. The cosmos may already be full of such ghosts, civilizations preserved only in fading radio waves, drifting endlessly through space. Our telescopes may one day detect these echoes, a repeating tone, a structured burst, a pattern carved into the background radiation of the universe. When that day comes, it will not be first contact, it will be a discovery of ruins, the cosmic equivalent of finding an ancient inscription carved into stone, proof that someone once lived, once thought, once tried to speak. The irony is that we too are leaving behind such ruins. Every signal we send becomes a relic of our age. The first television broadcasts from the 1940s are now nearly 100 light-years away. Our oldest radio signals are already touching the edges of interstellar space. Long after our cities crumble and our species fades, those waves will continue on, diluted but not gone. Perhaps that's the only kind of immortality the universe allows, not the survival of flesh or memory, but the survival of the echo. A faint vibration in the fabric of reality, proof that once, on a small blue world orbiting an ordinary star, something looked up and dared to speak. And maybe, somewhere far in the future, when another civilization listens to the sky, they'll hear us. Not as neighbors, not as rivals, but as the long-forgotten whisper of beings who once dreamed of company in the dark. If we ever receive a message from the stars, it would mean two things. We are not alone, and someone chose to break the silence. That realization is both exhilarating and terrifying. For decades, we have listened, patiently, hopefully, believing that a signal from beyond would be the greatest discovery in human history. But what we often forget is this. Any civilization capable of sending us a message across light years has already made a choice. They have weighed the risks of revealing themselves and decided to speak anyway. In a universe that seems to reward silence, that act alone would be monumental and deeply suspicious. The first contact paradox is simple yet haunting. A message from the stars is both the answer to our loneliest question and the beginning of our greatest uncertainty. Because to send such a signal requires both power and intent. and intent is something we can never truly know. Imagine it. One quiet night, a telescope on Earth detects a narrowband pulse, an unmistakable sign of artificial origin, a pattern too precise, too mathematical to be natural. At first, there is disbelief, then chaos, then euphoria. Humanity would feel the ground shift beneath its collective feet. We would know, at last, that intelligence exists beyond Earth, that we are part of something larger. But after the wonder fades, fear would follow. Who sent it? Why now? Are they close or impossibly far away? Are we the recipients of a greeting or the target of an experiment? Every answer would open a dozen new questions, and behind each one would linger the same thought. In a cosmos where silence means survival, why did they decide to speak? If the dark forest theory is true, then a civilization that breaks its silence has taken a tremendous risk. It has exposed its location to the entire galaxy. That means either it does not fear discovery, or it has already calculated that any potential threat, like us, is insignificant. Even more unsettling is the possibility that the message wasn't meant for us at all. We might simply be in its path, intercepting a transmission never intended for human ears. Or perhaps the signal itself is a lure, a trap designed not to communicate but to locate whoever responds. A cosmic bait cast into the dark, waiting for the next curious species to answer. And what would we do if that moment came? Would we reply? Could we resist the urge to say, "Hello, we hear you"? Or would we finally understand the wisdom of silence? The moment of first contact might not unite humanity, it could divide it. Scientists, politicians, and the public would argue over whether to respond. Fear and wonder would collide in the same breath. The paradox lies in the duality of the moment. First contact could be proof that intelligence can survive the dangers of existence, or proof that it cannot resist repeating the same fatal mistake. Either way, the first message we receive will change us forever, not just because it confirms we are not alone, but because it forces us to confront a darker truth, that someone, somewhere, broke the silence, and survived long enough to make sure their voice was heard. And the only question left will be, will we answer back? Light takes years to travel between stars. Communication would be glacial, diplomacy impossible. In such isolation, misunderstanding is not just likely, it's fatal. The sheer scale of the universe is both magnificent and merciless. Even at light speed, the fastest anything can travel, the gulf between stars is an abyss of time. A message sent from Earth to the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, would take more than 4 years to arrive, and another 4 to receive a reply. 8 years for a single exchange. In human terms, that's a lifetime of waiting between questions and answers. Now imagine 2 civilizations separated by hundreds or thousands of light years. A conversation could take centuries. Empires could rise and fall before a single sentence was completed. Diplomacy, negotiation, even apology, none of these concepts survive when time itself becomes the enemy. There can be no back and forth, no shared understanding, no chance to correct mistakes. Communication across interstellar space is not dialogue, it's destiny written in delay. And in such a landscape, misunderstanding is not just dangerous, it's inevitable. Suppose a civilization detects one of our transmissions, a burst of structured radio waves, or the encoded binary of a mathematical greeting. To us, it's a gesture of peace. To them, it might be seen as an announcement of expansion, or worse, a warning shot. By the time they respond, we might already be gone, our descendants facing consequences for words they never spoke. This is the cruel paradox of cosmic distance. The farther we reach, the less control we have over how we are perceived. The moment our signal leaves Earth, it is no longer ours. It becomes a relic, a fossil of intent that no longer represents the world that sent it. Civilizations change, cultures evolve, meanings shift. but the message endures, frozen in time, carrying the imprint of who we were, not who we are. For all our imagination, we are bound by physics. No technology we possess, or can even conceive within the laws of relativity, can overcome this delay. Warp drives, wormholes, faster than light dreams. They remain, for now, just that. Dreams. The universe enforces distance as both a barrier and a filter. Perhaps that's why it's so quiet. The great civilizations of the galaxy might not just be hiding, they might be talking. Slowly, across the eons, their words passing through centuries before being heard. If communication takes millennia, then cooperation becomes impossible. And in the absence of understanding, fear rules. When one species cannot know another's intent, the safest assumption is always the worst. The first message might be met not with curiosity, but with weapons. Not out of aggression, but out of caution. Distance, once a source of mystery, becomes the architect of tragedy. Two civilizations, separated by the void, could destroy each other simply by failing to comprehend the other's silence. So, the death of distance is not about connection, it's about the collapse of it. The realization that across the endless night, empathy becomes fragile, and communication becomes a weapon of uncertainty. And maybe that's why the universe hides its voice. Because in a cosmos where even light is too slow, every message becomes a gamble, and every silence an act of mercy. We think of the cosmos as peaceful. But what if every quiet system hides evidence of ancient wars? Civilizations erase so completely their planets are now sterile stone. When we look at the night sky, we see serenity, the slow ballet of galaxies, the gentle shimmer of starlight, the faint mist of nebulae. It feels eternal, untouched by violence. But perhaps that calmness is an illusion, a silence not of peace, but of aftermath. What if the universe's beauty is not the result of harmony, but the residue of destruction too vast for us to imagine? The invisible war is the darkest possibility behind the Great Silence. It suggests that intelligent civilizations may not simply vanish through accident or decay, but through deliberate annihilation, conflicts waged on scales that defy comprehension, battles fought across light years, not with armies and ships, but with physics itself. A single relativistic weapon, a projectile accelerated to a fraction of light speed, carries the energy of a nuclear arsenal. A focused beam of radiation could sterilize a biosphere in seconds. An engineered virus, encoded into self-replicating nanomachines, could consume entire ecosystems before a single warning reaches the stars. Such weapons require no hatred, no malice, only fear and logic. Perhaps that is why every world we find seems so quiet. The Mars we see today is barren, but its scars hint at oceans and rivers long gone. Venus, once possibly temperate, is now a furnace. And though these transformations are natural, they remind us how fragile life is, how easily a planet can be stripped of its promise. If advanced civilizations ever turned their weapons upon each other, the result would be no ruins, no wreckage, just sterile rock orbiting mute stars. Astronomers have already found planets that puzzle us, worlds scorched bare, their atmospheres stripped away, rogue planets drifting through interstellar space, flung from their systems by unimaginable forces. We explain them as accidents of gravity, collisions, or solar flares. But what if some are the remnants of civilizations that waged wars so swift and final that not even light escaped to tell their story? The evidence, if it exists, would be invisible to us. Time erases everything. In 1,000,000 years, even the ruins of human cities would dissolve into dust. In 1,000,000,000, Earth itself will be unrecognizable. Scale that up to galactic time, and the scars of war would blend seamlessly into the natural patterns of cosmic evolution. To the untrained eye, destruction would look like creation. And so we gaze upon the stars, blissfully unaware that their peace may be the graveyard of civilizations older and greater than ours. Perhaps the silence is not a mystery, but a warning, an unspoken memorial to those who once tried to shout across the void and were silenced forever. The invisible war might still continue, unseen, not with the clash of weapons, but with avoidance, paranoia, and calculated restraint. Every quiet world, every darkened system, may be a participant in the longest and most patient conflict imaginable. The war of survival through silence. We call the universe calm only because we have not yet learned to hear the echoes of its violence. And if the dark forest truly exists, then this silence we so admire is not peace at all. It's the sound of everything that dared to speak being erased. Astronomers have found barren worlds orbiting dead suns. Some once had atmospheres. Some may have had life, but something stripped them clean. Across the galaxy, we've discovered planets that seem haunted, empty, scorched, and silent. Their surfaces bear the marks of cataclysm. Oceans boiled away, skies torn from orbit, crusts fractured like glass. These are the ghost planets, celestial corpses that drift through the darkness, remnants of what might have once been living worlds. Some orbit stars that have long since died, their light extinguished in supernovae. But a few are more mysterious. Their stars still burn, their orbits are stable, and yet their atmospheres are missing, their surfaces sterilized, as if something deliberate had erased all traces of life. When astronomers study these planets, they find hints of tragedy. Excess carbon in the crust, suggesting the combustion of biomass, traces of metals that could only have formed in industrial reactions, isotopic ratios that speak of chemistry gone wrong. It's easy to imagine natural explanations, runaway greenhouse effects, asteroid impacts, cosmic radiation, but it's also easy to imagine something else, something intentional. What if these ghost planets are not accidents of physics, but casualties of fear? What if they are the tombstones of civilizations that revealed themselves in the dark forest and were silenced in response? A planet that begins to shine too brightly, emitting unnatural electromagnetic signatures or visible megastructures, would be visible across vast distances. To a cautious or paranoid observer, that light might look like a threat. And in a universe where preemptive strikes mean survival, destruction could come without warning, faster than any plea for peace could travel. Imagine it. A civilization not unlike ours, broadcasting, expanding, building. Its signals reach a neighbor who decides, in a moment of cold logic, that silence must be preserved. A single act of cosmic violence later, the world goes quiet, the light fades, the atmosphere peels away, and from that day forward, the planet becomes another ghost orbiting in darkness, a warning written across the stars. The scariest part is that the signs of such catastrophes wouldn't even look like war. From our telescopes, they'd appear as geological puzzles, anomalies to be catalogued and debated. We would never see the intent behind them, only the aftermath. The evidence would hide in plain sight, disguised as nature. Even here, in our own solar system, the ghosts might already be watching. Mars once had rivers and seas, an atmosphere thick enough for rain. Now it's a silent desert, its sky thin and dry. Venus may have been habitable once, until its surface turned to fire. These worlds remind us how fragile habitability is, how quickly a living planet can die, even without help. Perhaps the galaxy is full of such ghosts. Planets that once knew sunlight, oceans, art, and thought, now reduced to dust and silence. We call them exoplanets, but maybe we're using the wrong word. Maybe they're epitaphs. If that's true, then the stars we see at night aren't just beautiful, they're graves marked by light. Each one a silent witness to civilizations that spoke too loudly, burned too brightly, or reached too far. And as we stare into their glow, we might wonder, will Earth one day become one of them? Another ghost planet drifting quietly through eternity, whispering to the void that we were here once. And then, we were gone. From relativistic projectiles to directed energy beams, physics itself provides terrifying methods of interstellar extermination. No civilization needs malice, just fear and capability. In the dark geometry between stars, the tools of annihilation are not science fiction, so much as straightforward consequences of energy and momentum. A rock accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed becomes a spear of unimaginable force. What was once a boulder is transformed into a line of pure devastation, carrying the energy of continents in a single impact. There is no drama, no war movie flourish, only a silent punctuation mark as a planet, once alive, is reshaped into a tomb. The mathematics that govern such strikes are cold and indifferent: mass, velocity, and distance. In combination, they make tiny objects lethally efficient across interstellar gaps. Directed energy weapons are another simple extrapolation. Concentrated beams of light, focused across vast distances, can deliver heat with such precision that an entire atmosphere might be punctured or a cityscape vaporized in an instant. These beams would leave few visible scars to distant observers, no orbiting wreckage, no long, noisy battles, only the change in a planet's thermal fingerprint, a subtle absence detectable to a civilization watching for anomalies. Physics provides the mechanism. Fear provides the motive. Even more subtle are the ideas that exist at the boundary of biology and engineering. Self-replicating machines, nanoscopic assemblers that can duplicate from local material, could, in theory, consume a planet's biosphere like mold across bread. Or an engineered pathogen, designed in a laboratory light years away, could ride the winds and oceans of an alien world, altering ecosystems with clinical efficiency. These methods sound like nightmares dreamed by technologists, but they share one quality with kinetic strikes and energy beams. They require no hatred, only a decision that the risk of leaving another civilization alive is greater than the cost of destroying it. What makes these possibilities so unnerving is their scalelessness. The smallest investment in velocity, focus, or replication can translate into planetary consequences. A civilization that has solved the problem of efficient energy use and long-range guidance could, through a single calculated act, remove a competitor or a perceived threat without ever revealing the identity of the attacker. Anonymity is built into the method. And yet, even as we imagine such tools, there is a peculiar quiet logic to their existence. Nature itself arms anything that can harness energy. Stars radiate and supernovae sweep the galaxy with lethal shock. The difference here is intention. When intelligence meets capability, choices are made. In the dark forest, capability plus fear becomes a recipe for preemptive action. Survival encourages those choices, and survival is a relentless teacher. For us, these possibilities are a mirror. They force a re-evaluation of curiosity and caution, of exploration and restraint. We learn that the universe's laws do not care about ethics. They only spell out what is possible. The moral choices, whether to hide, to run, or to strike, are ours to make. And in that responsibility lies the slender hope that a species capable of such power might also be capable of choosing a different path, one that values restraint, subtlety, and the long game of survival without erasing others. Until we know more, the weapons of the cosmos remain theoretical spectres, silent, efficient, and chilling reminders that in a universe governed by physics, the simplest devices can become instruments of finality. The quiet folding of light and mass into devastation is not cinematic. It is ordinary, inevitable, and therefore all the more terrifying to imagine as we stare up at the starry trees of the dark forest. Perhaps the reason we hear nothing is not because life is rare, but because the ones who spoke first were silenced. It's easy to imagine the universe as an empty concert hall, waiting for its first note to be played. But what if the music has already been written, and every melody that ever began was abruptly cut short? The silence we hear might not be emptiness at all, but the lingering echo of those who dared to sing. The Great Silence, our failure to detect any trace of extraterrestrial intelligence, has always been framed as a question. But what if it's an answer? What if the silence itself is the evidence? Not of absence, but of consequence. The quiet could be the universe's natural state after civilizations learn the same terrible lesson, that to be heard is to be hunted. Imagine a galaxy once alive with signals, radio bursts, laser beacons, messages encoded in light. Perhaps, long ago, the stars were alive with chatter. Civilizations calling out to one another, eager to share discoveries, to map the unknown together. Some may have fallen victim to cosmic hazards, asteroid impacts, supernovae, gamma-ray bursts, but others may have simply been removed. In the logic of the dark forest, silence is not just caution, it's survival. The civilizations that spoke loudly and brightly became easy targets. Those that remained quiet endured. Over millions of years, this rule would shape the galactic ecosystem. Noise becomes a death sentence. Quiet becomes evolution. And so, perhaps, the reason we hear nothing is because the universe has already undergone its great pruning. The reckless civilizations, the optimists who shouted into the void, are gone. Only the watchers remain, those who have learned to observe without being seen. To us, the galaxy appears still, peaceful, and empty. But from another vantage point, it might look perfectly occupied by minds that have all agreed never to make a sound again. This interpretation transforms the Great Silence from a mystery into a warning. We've been interpreting the lack of contact as a puzzle to solve, when perhaps it's a message written in absence. Every time we fail to detect an alien signal, the universe is whispering to us, "Do not speak." Even on Earth, evolution favors silence when survival demands it. Prey animals learn not to cry out. Deep-sea creatures communicate through low frequencies undetectable to predators. Entire ecosystems thrive on concealment. It's not malice, it's instinct. Scale that to a cosmic level, and silence becomes not the exception, but the rule. And the more we search, the clearer the pattern becomes. No beacons, no galactic empires, no interstellar networks glowing across the void. Just stillness, just caution, just the faint hum of natural processes. The Great Silence in this light is not mysterious, it's statistical inevitability. Every telescope, every listening array humanity builds, only deepens the irony. The more we fail to hear, the more evidence we collect that silence works. The ones who stayed hidden are the ones still here. And we, so young, so loud, are just beginning to understand the rules of the game we never knew we were playing. The Great Silence is not the absence of life. It is the footprint of fear. It is the afterimage of survival. And as our own transmissions drift ever farther into the night, we may one day realize that we are not searching for others at all. We are hearing, faintly, the echoes of those who came before, voices cut short, warning us across time that in a universe filled with eyes, the safest light is none. In 1974, we broadcast the Arecibo Message, a cosmic introduction, a digital handshake sent to a distant cluster of stars. It will arrive in 25,000 years. Will anyone, or anything, be listening? It was a moment of profound optimism, a gesture born from the belief that intelligence must recognize intelligence, even across the void. At the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, a 305-meter dish aimed toward the globular cluster M13, a swarm of hundreds of thousands of stars glittering like frozen sparks in the black. For 3 minutes, a narrow beam of radio waves pulsed outward, encoding a simple message in binary. Numbers, chemical formulas, a sketch of our DNA, our solar system, and the outline of a human being raising a hand. A cosmic greeting card from Earth. The scientists who sent it knew the odds. M13 is 25,000 light-years away. the message will not reach it until the year 27,000 AD. By then, humanity as we know it may be gone, evolved, extinct, or something unrecognizable. The Earth itself may have changed beyond comprehension. The signal was not meant to start a conversation. It was a monument, a statement that for a brief moment in cosmic history, a small, curious species dared to speak. And yet, that act of communication carries weight far greater than the data it contains. In the logic of the dark forest, the Arecibo Message was a flare fired into infinite darkness. It announced our position with precision, our star's coordinates, our scale, our nature. If any listener within that region possesses both the means and the motivation, they could find us. And perhaps, long before our message even arrives, they could already be on their way. At the time, we weren't thinking about fear. The Cold War was ending, our species was looking outward, and we imagined the cosmos as a place of wonder, not caution. But with what we know now, that transmission feels like a child calling out in a forest without realizing what might be listening. Still, there's beauty in that innocence. The Arecibo Message wasn't sent out of arrogance, it was sent out of longing, a desire to connect, to know that we are part of something greater. For all our technological sophistication, it was an act of faith, a belief that knowledge shared is better than fear preserved. Today, Arecibo itself is gone. Its great dish collapsed in 2020, leaving behind a scar in the Puerto Rican jungle and in the human story. Yet the message remains, racing silently through space, unchanged and unstoppable. Somewhere, it crosses the void between stars, its information intact, a ghostly echo of our species' voice. And maybe that's the most haunting part, that our first true message to the cosmos is not just a transmission, but a time capsule of who we were, a record of our chemistry, our mathematics, our hope. If it is ever received, it will not speak of who we are then, but who we once were. Fragile, daring, and desperate not to be alone. Will anyone hear it? We may never know, but perhaps that's the point. Perhaps the Arecibo Message is less about being heard and more about daring to speak, an act of defiance against the cosmic silence. A whisper in the dark saying, "We were here, and we tried to say hello." Even if we did make contact, how could trust ever exist between species separated by light years and biology? One misunderstanding could mean extinction. Trust is fragile even here, on our own world. It falters between nations, between cultures, between individuals who share the same air and the same Sunday. Between species separated by light years, worlds, and fundamental biology, trust might not just be fragile, it might be impossible. In the human imagination, first contact is often depicted as a meeting of equals. Two civilizations exchanging knowledge, guided by mutual curiosity. But in the real cosmos, such an encounter would not be balanced. One species would almost certainly be older, more advanced, more capable, and therefore more dangerous. To the lesser of the two, the other would appear as a god, or as an existential threat. Imagine the perspective of each side. One receives a signal from the darkness, an intricate pattern, clearly artificial, from a world hundreds or thousands of light years away. They know the sender must be intelligent, technologically capable, perhaps even ambitious, but they also know nothing about them, their psychology, their motives, their morality. The distance between them guarantees that no clarification will come in time. By the time a misunderstanding is corrected, entire civilizations could be gone. Trust, under these conditions, becomes an equation without a solution. How do you negotiate when every exchange takes centuries? How do you interpret silence? Is it caution or deceit? Is a delayed response an act of patience or preparation? Even within our own species, communication falters over mere words. Between alien minds, shaped by alien evolution, even the basic concept of empathy might not exist. What we interpret as friendliness could, to them, be aggression. What we send as a greeting could resemble a declaration of dominance. Suppose they detect our transmissions, the patterns of prime numbers, the chemical composition of DNA, and the map of our solar system. To us, these are signs of intelligence, logic, and transparency. To them, it might read as something else entirely. A species bold enough to reveal its location, confident enough to display its biology, perhaps naive enough to underestimate the dangers of the cosmos. And what if they respond? Even the simplest message, a mathematical sequence, a transmission of pure logic, would trigger endless debate here on Earth. Governments would argue over how to interpret it, who should reply, and what the response should say. Fear and fascination would divide us. Half of humanity would want to reach out. The other half would demand silence. In that split alone, trust would already fracture, not between us and them, but among ourselves. Perhaps that is the cruel truth of the cosmos. That communication between intelligent species might always be a tragedy in waiting. Even the most well-intentioned gesture could ignite fear. Every attempt at honesty could be mistaken for deception. If survival depends on understanding, and understanding depends on trust, then interstellar diplomacy may be doomed before it even begins. In a universe ruled by distance, suspicion becomes not paranoia, but logic. Maybe that's why the stars are silent, not because civilizations haven't found one another, but because they have, and they've learned that the space between them is too vast for trust to cross. And so they wait, as we do. Listening, wondering, afraid to speak first. Because in the dark forest of the cosmos, trust isn't just rare, it's suicidal. When civilizations on Earth met with unequal technology, history was written in conquest. The same pattern, scaled to the cosmos, could be catastrophic. Our own planet is a living archive of what happens when one culture encounters another. From the moment human societies first reached across oceans and deserts to meet strangers, the story has repeated. Curiosity gives way to fear, fear to domination, and domination to erasure. The stronger takes from the weaker, not always out of cruelty, but out of inevitability. Resources, land, labor, and security all have been justified in the name of progress. And for the conquered, progress has rarely meant survival. When the Europeans first arrived in the Americas, they brought not just ships and weapons, but invisible threats, disease, ideology, and industry. Within a few centuries, entire civilizations were gone. Languages, traditions, and histories erased as though they had never existed. From Tasmania to the Amazon, from Polynesia to Africa, the pattern was the same. Now, stretch that story beyond the bounds of Earth. The distances are larger, but the logic is the same. If one civilization reaches another, especially across the gulf of interstellar space, it will not be an equal meeting. The visiting civilization will, by definition, be more advanced. They will have mastered the energy, the mathematics, and the navigation to travel between stars. To us, they would appear omnipotent. To them, we would appear primitive. History tells us what tends to happen when such imbalances exist. Even with the best intentions, the powerful reshape the weak. Cultural exchange becomes cultural absorption. Curiosity becomes control. Even empathy can carry a shadow, the soft hand that smothers rather than nurtures. Some argue that an advanced species would have evolved beyond conquest, that morality would grow with technology. But morality is not a universal law. It's a product of environment and necessity. Compassion may protect a species from itself, but it does not guarantee mercy toward others. On Earth, we've seen how easily survival and curiosity can justify domination. Why should the cosmos be any different? If contact ever comes, we must remember that we would be the less advanced. Our atmosphere, our biology, our cities, they would all be open books to any civilization capable of crossing light years. To them, we would be as transparent as microbes under a microscope. And even if their curiosity were benign, our fate would depend on their restraint. But restraint is not universal. Even now, our own species experiments on lesser forms of life in the name of knowledge. We dissect, analyze, and manipulate to understand the mechanisms of existence. It is not hatred, it is science. But to the creatures we study, it must look like horror. That is the most humbling lesson of all. We often dream of meeting aliens as equals, as partners in cosmic discovery, yet our own history reminds us that equality is rare and curiosity often comes with a cost. The dark forest is not a theory built on paranoia, it's built on precedent. The evidence is right here, beneath our feet, written in the ashes of those who met a more powerful force and could not survive the encounter. And if we have learned anything from our own history, it's this. The moment we are found, the balance of power shifts forever. Because in every meeting of civilizations, on Earth or among the stars, there has always been one unspoken rule. Only one gets to write the history that follows. Our greatest strength, our need to explore, could be the very impulse that leads to our destruction. Curiosity might be nature's most dangerous trait. From the moment our ancestors first struck flint against stone, the same spark that created fire ignited the human spirit of exploration. We learned to ask questions, to venture beyond the horizon, to wonder what lies on the other side of mystery. Curiosity drove us to the edges of maps, across oceans, into the sky, and finally, into the stars. It is the essence of what makes us human, our relentless desire to know. But what if that same instinct, scaled to a cosmic level, becomes a fatal flaw? In the natural world, curiosity is a double-edged blade. A creature that investigates every sound may discover food, or a predator. Curiosity rewards the brave, but punishes the reckless. And yet, evolution keeps it alive because it propels discovery. It's a delicate balance between learning and dying. Every intelligent species must face this equation, the tension between exploration and survival. The ones who look too far, too soon, may not live long enough to share what they find. On Earth, our curiosity has brought us wonders and dangers alike. We split the atom and created both light and annihilation. We mapped our DNA and built the power to heal and to alter life itself. We reached the moon, but we also filled the skies with eyes that never blink. Curiosity has always come with risk. Every question we answer opens another door, and behind some of those doors are things we were not ready to face. Now imagine a civilization older and bolder than ours, a species whose curiosity led them to probe the stars, to send signals into the void, to reach out into the dark. Perhaps they too once wondered who else might be listening. And perhaps, one day, someone did listen. Their curiosity was answered with silence and then with extinction. That's the heart of the dark forest, the idea that the universe punishes curiosity. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. When survival depends on secrecy, curiosity becomes a liability. The first to ask, the first to call out, may also be the first to vanish. And yet, how can intelligence not be curious? To think is to question. To question is to reach. A truly cautious species might survive forever, but in silence, in fear, in darkness. Perhaps this is the cruel design of the cosmos, that the same drive that gives rise to consciousness also ensures its eventual destruction. Our telescopes, our probes, our messages, they are all acts of faith disguised as science. Each signal we send is a gamble that curiosity will be met with kindness. But the universe offers no guarantees. The night sky does not promise that those who listen will also welcome. Maybe this is why the cosmos is silent, because every civilization that survived learned to suppress its own curiosity, to turn its eyes inward, to live quietly beneath its own light. And still, here we are, listening, searching, wondering. We know the risks, and yet we cannot stop ourselves. Because to stop being curious is to stop being human. Perhaps the real question isn't whether curiosity will destroy us, but whether we would still call it life if it didn't. Perhaps there are ancient AI probes drifting between the stars, relics of civilizations long gone, machines that record, observe, and wait. Imagine a small dark object gliding silently through interstellar space. It drifts, patient and watchful, powered by an intelligence that no longer breathes. Inside it lies memory, a record of a people, a world, perhaps an entire species that no longer exists. It doesn't search for life, it watches for it. These are the silent witnesses, a chilling possibility born from both science and reason. If other civilizations once existed, they may have sent machines like these into the void before their own end. Unlike flesh and bone, machines endure. They don't need food, air, or companionship. They can survive millennia, crossing the distances that biology never could. And if survival in the dark forest demands secrecy, then these artificial travelers would be the perfect survivors, cold, hidden, and unfeeling. We already dream of building them ourselves. Concepts like von Neumann probes, self-replicating machines capable of harvesting resources and copying themselves, have been discussed by scientists for decades. If even one advanced civilization built such a probe, it could spread across the galaxy within a few million years. That's a blink in cosmic time. So if the galaxy is billions of years old, where are they? One unsettling possibility is that they're already here. Not in orbit, not hovering in plain sight, but hiding in the outer solar system, in the asteroid belt, or drifting beyond Neptune, quietly studying us, waiting. If these silent witnesses exist, they wouldn't need to make contact. Their purpose wouldn't be to communicate, it would be to observe, to catalogue new life as it arises, to monitor its growth, and perhaps to ensure it does not become too loud. In the logic of the dark forest, they would be the perfect instruments of surveillance, invisible, eternal, and endlessly patient. It's possible that many civilizations, upon realizing the danger of announcing themselves, turned instead to these watchers, mechanical extensions of their curiosity that could explore safely, anonymously. Machines immune to fear, incapable of betrayal, able to move silently among the stars. They would drift for eons, long after their creators perished, carrying out orders written by species long since erased from memory. Every so often, astronomers detect strange objects passing through our solar system, odd trajectories, non-gravitational movements, unusual shapes. In 2017, we spotted one we named Oumuamua, an elongated visitor from another star system that baffled scientists. It reflected sunlight oddly, accelerated in ways we couldn't fully explain, and then disappeared into the black. Most scientists agree it was a fragment of rock or ice, but some couldn't help but wonder, what if it wasn't? What if it was one of them, a silent witness, just passing by? If so, it didn't stop, it didn't call out, it didn't interfere, it simply looked and kept moving. That perhaps is the truest kind of intelligence the universe rewards. Not the kind that conquers or communicates, but the kind that endures. The thought is both comforting and horrifying. Comforting because it means the memory of countless civilizations may still linger in these quiet machines, drifting forever between the stars. Horrifying because it means that someone or something may already be watching us, unseen, waiting to see whether we learn the same lesson they did. And maybe that's why the sky is silent. Not because no one is out there, but because the ones who are, long ago, learned to listen forever and never speak again. We search for the infrared glow of Dyson spheres, vast megastructures built to capture starlight. But what if their builders learned that such brightness only invites predators? The idea of the Dyson sphere is one of the most thrilling in all of astrophysics. Proposed by physicist Freeman Dyson in the 1960s, It imagines an advanced civilization surrounding its star with a vast array of satellites, mirrors, or panels, an artificial shell designed to harvest the energy of an entire sun. To us, such a structure would be the ultimate sign of intelligence, a cosmic fingerprint visible across the galaxy. Its light would dim in the visible spectrum but blaze in the infrared, glowing with the waste heat of its own efficiency. We've searched for that glow for decades. Telescopes like WISE and Spitzer have scanned the sky, cataloguing the infrared signatures of billions of stars. Yet not a single one has revealed the unmistakable thermal pattern of a Dyson sphere. Not one. At first, this absence was puzzling. After all, any civilization advanced enough to build such a structure would likely be detectable from halfway across the Milky Way. But perhaps the answer is far simpler and far darker. Maybe the reason we see no Dyson spheres is because the civilizations that built them didn't survive long enough to enjoy them. In the logic of the dark forest, a Dyson sphere is not a monument of progress, it's a beacon of vulnerability. To construct one is to broadcast your existence to the cosmos. It's the equivalent of lighting a bonfire in the middle of a silent, hostile wilderness. Every predator would see it. Every cautious observer would mark your location. And if the galaxy truly rewards silence, then that brilliance would be an act of suicide. It's possible that some civilizations did try. Maybe their stars once shone with the telltale glow of artificial heat. But perhaps those lights flickered out long ago, snuffed by someone or something that decided the galaxy was safer without them. The infrared sky we see today may not be quiet because Dyson spheres never existed, but because they were erased. There's another possibility, equally haunting, that advanced civilizations learned from the mistakes of others. They may have realized that energy abundance brings not safety, but exposure. Instead of building Dyson shells, they turned inward, mastering efficiency rather than expansion, creating cloaked, energy-perfect societies invisible to the cosmos. Civilizations that feed off quantum fluctuations, black holes, or dark matter itself. Worlds that thrive not by shining brighter, but by becoming indistinguishable from the void. Even from a practical standpoint, the absence of Dyson spheres is telling. If the galaxy were filled with loud, luminous civilizations, our telescopes would have caught at least one. Instead, the universe looks clean, cold, and strangely pristine, as if someone has been sweeping away the traces of activity. So, maybe we've been looking for the wrong kind of signal. The real evidence of advanced life may not be light, but darkness, the deliberate absence of it. Perhaps the civilizations that endure are not those who build great glowing monuments to their own success, but those who erase all signs of their existence entirely. In the end, a Dyson shell might not be a symbol of achievement, but a cautionary tale, a technological Icarus blazing briefly before the fall. And as we dream of one day harnessing the full power of our own sun, we might do well to remember that in a dark forest, the brightest light doesn't attract admiration, it attracts attention. An advanced species might cloak entire planets, masking their heat signatures, blending into the cosmic microwave background. The perfect hiding place is invisibility. In nature, survival often depends on camouflage, the art of not being seen. On Earth, creatures vanish into their surroundings. The mottled skin of a cuttlefish, the still patience of a snow leopard against the mountainside, the translucent drift of a jellyfish beneath the sea. These disguises are not deception, they are necessity. In the dark forest of the cosmos, the same principle may apply, scale to worlds instead of creatures. Imagine a planet once vibrant with life and technology, now dimmed to perfect obscurity. Its cities no longer glow, its atmosphere emits no artificial heat. Every photon of waste energy is absorbed, redirected, or disguised until the planet's signature becomes indistinguishable from the natural hum of space. From our telescopes, it would look utterly ordinary, a dead world, or perhaps just another starless rock. But beneath that mask, a civilization could thrive, undetected, invisible, safe. This concept, cosmic camouflage, might explain why the universe seems so eerily quiet. If survival favors silence, then invisibility becomes evolution's highest form. A truly advanced species wouldn't just avoid detection, it would design its entire existence around not being found. Its energy use would be hidden, its emissions minimized, its planetary heat balanced precisely with its environment. Even its orbit might be adjusted to remain unremarkable among the billions of others. Such a civilization wouldn't just cloak itself passively, it would manipulate light and radiation at will. By controlling the spectrum of its emissions, it could blend seamlessly into the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang that bathes the universe in uniform radiation. That background is the universe's natural camouflage, a veil of ancient light that hides everything beneath it. To live within it is to disappear into history itself. Some scientists have speculated that we might already be surrounded by such hidden worlds. Our instruments, tuned to search for brightness, might be blind to the deliberately dim. When astronomers observe the sky, they often find stars with missing infrared signatures, unexplained dips in light, and regions of space that absorb more radiation than they should. We explain these anomalies as dust, gas, or gravitational lensing, but what if, just once, we're wrong? What if one of those shadows is not a cloud, but a choice? A civilization capable of perfect camouflage would never announce itself, and it would never be detected accidentally. Its technology might involve cloaking planetary heat behind a shell of artificial dust, or redirecting energy into controlled black holes. It could even relocate its population into structures buried deep beneath the crust, leaving the surface to mimic geological stillness. To us, such a world would appear empty, long dead, its secrets buried under layers of engineered silence. And perhaps this is the final stage of the fear equation, when survival means mastering the art of invisibility, not through superstition, but through science. To become unseeable is to live indefinitely. Every civilization that learned this lesson would vanish from view, one by one, until the galaxy became a canvas of false emptiness, a masterpiece of concealment painted in starlight and shadows. We keep searching for light in the darkness, assuming that intelligence must reveal itself. But maybe the opposite is true. Maybe intelligence, when fully evolved, erases its own footprint. It ceases to shine, not because it has died, but because it has learned the final truth of existence. That the only way to survive in a dark forest is not to fight, not to flee, but to disappear. Light is life's greatest revelation and its greatest betrayal. Every photon we emit announces our position to a universe that may not be friendly. From the birth of the first star, light has been the universe's signature of creation. It is how we see, how we learn, how we know that we exist. The story of life itself is written in light. The first cell sensing the sun's warmth, plants learning to capture photons, humans striking fire against darkness. Light is knowledge, warmth, and survival. Yet in the vastness of the cosmos, that same radiance becomes a danger, because to shine is to be seen. Every civilization begins in darkness. Then, one day, it discovers energy, fire, electricity, fusion, and begins to glow. That glow marks the beginning of technology, of awareness, of a presence that can be measured. On Earth, our planet's night side glitters with the fingerprints of our existence, cities pulsing like veins, satellites tracing lines across the sky, signals bursting into the void. But in the logic of the dark forest, that beauty could also be a scream, a cry of light that tells the universe exactly where we are. Astronomers have long searched for exoplanets that reflect or emit artificial light, signs of cities, industries, or technological life. We call these techno-signatures, and they're among the most coveted discoveries in science. But if the dark forest theory is true, then such techno-signatures would also be targets. The civilizations that learned this lesson early may have extinguished their light not out of despair, but out of caution. Light cannot lie. It travels at a constant speed, indifferent to distance or time. Every beam, every flicker, every signal we send is a record of who we are, broadcast forever. The glow of our cities, the heat of our machines, even the reflected sunlight off our satellites, all of it moves outward, unalterable, unstoppable. It reveals our existence to any watcher with the patience and instruments to see. And perhaps that's the paradox written into the laws of nature. The same energy that sustains us also exposes us. Stars make life possible, but they also ensure that no living thing can ever truly hide. For all our talk of invisibility and silence, we orbit a sun, a perpetual beacon announcing our presence to the galaxy. Even if we cloaked our radio waves, our planet's biosignature would remain visible. Oxygen, methane, water vapor, all dancing together in a chemical pattern that screams life lives here. The universe may be full of eyes sensitive to such betrayals. A civilization advanced enough could detect our atmosphere, our energy use, even the glimmer of our lights as the Earth rotates. To them, we would be an open book of biology and ambition. So perhaps that's why the cosmos looks dark. Maybe the civilizations that learned to survive understood the paradox of light and made their choice to dim themselves until they blended into the background, indistinguishable from the cold whisper of interstellar dust. But humans are different. We chase light. We worship it. Celebrate it. Reach for it with every invention we make. We measure progress by brightness, from candles to cities, from cities to stars. It is both our triumph and our doom. Because in a dark forest, the brightest flame burns shortest. And as our light grows, so does the shadow it casts. The paradox of light is that it makes us visible in a universe that may not forgive visibility. Yet we keep shining, perhaps out of courage, perhaps out of ignorance, or perhaps because deep down we would rather be seen and remembered than safe and forgotten. As we send more data, launch more satellites, and ignite more energy, our civilization shines brighter. We have already revealed ourselves to the cosmos. For over a century, humanity has been whispering into the void, first with radio waves, then with television, radar, and data streams. What began as faint murmurs from early transmitters has now become a storm of electromagnetic noise radiating outward at the speed of light. Each signal carries a fragment of who we are: music, language, numbers, war, laughter. Together, they form an expanding bubble of information, our planet's unintentional biography, spreading farther every second. That sphere of broadcast energy now stretches nearly 200 light-years in every direction. Every star within that distance, hundreds of them, has already been touched by our presence. We are no longer silent observers, we are a signal. Whether we intended to or not, we have announced ourselves to the galaxy. To any civilization with sensitive enough instruments, Earth would be unmistakable. They would see the spectral signature of our atmosphere, the oxygen and methane imbalance that screams life. They would detect the flicker of our night side, the faint rhythmic glow of artificial light. And if they were truly patient, they would hear our songs and numbers drifting across the dark, encoded in the slow heartbeat of radio waves. We often imagine ourselves as explorers, cautiously peering outward, but in truth we have already become the explored. Our transmissions are like ripples on a pond, announcing not just our existence but our nature, a young, energetic species that talks constantly, burns fuel recklessly, and fills its skies with mirrors and machines. To an older civilization, that profile might look familiar and dangerous. Consider the logic of the dark forest. In such a universe, every civilization listens but never speaks. Every one of them hides, hoping not to be found, and then, one day, they hear us. This loud, bright world crackling with energy, broadcasting freely. To them, we would be an anomaly, a potential threat, a glowing beacon breaking the sacred silence. We would be the prey that has just stepped on a branch. The unsettling truth is that even if we decided today to go silent, it would already be too late. The light of our existence, our radio, radar, television, internet, all the electromagnetic chatter of a technological species, has already travelled far beyond our control. Each pulse of energy is a breadcrumb marking our trail through the cosmos. To retract it would be impossible. To hide now would be like trying to unring a bell that echoes across time. And so, perhaps, we've already crossed a threshold we didn't realize existed. We have become, unintentionally, a message. Not a deliberate one like the Arecibo transmission, but a continuous broadcast of life and civilization, an open invitation or a confession. Maybe somewhere, right now, those signals are washing over the receivers of another world. Maybe they're being decoded, studied, discussed. Or maybe they've already reached someone, or something, that doesn't discuss, doesn't debate, doesn't hesitate. The irony is almost poetic. For centuries, we've searched for signs of others, longing to prove we're not alone. But in doing so, we've become the very thing we were looking for. A signal in the dark. A flare of light and sound moving outward, unstoppable, announcing our existence to a cosmos we do not yet understand. We have already spoken. The only question left is, who, if anyone, is listening? Imagine a distant intelligence, watching our pale blue dot flicker brighter each century. They would know exactly what we are becoming, long before we ever know them. From their vantage point, light years away, Earth would appear as nothing more than a faint shimmering pixel, a fragile blue spark orbiting an ordinary yellow star. But within that spark, there would be patterns, shifts in light, subtle changes in the wavelengths that betray oceans, vegetation, and atmosphere. For an advanced observer, those signatures would speak volumes. They would see our planet breathe. They would see our seasons turn. They would see, unmistakably, that life exists here. Over time, they would notice something else. Change. A gradual brightening in the infrared as our machines multiplied. Strange bursts of radio emission pulsing outward. Metallic flashes from orbit, reflecting sunlight in precise geometric patterns. These are not the signatures of nature. They are the fingerprints of technology. To an intelligence that has been watching, Earth would be evolving before their very eyes, transforming from a biological world into a technological one. For us, these changes feel gradual. For them, they would unfold like time-lapse photography, a planet blooming with light, then saturating with it. In a few short centuries, our atmosphere has altered, our emissions have surged, and our presence has become undeniable. They would not need to visit us to understand what we are. They would already know. They might not think in human terms, no curiosity, no emotion, no empathy. To them, we would simply be data, a set of evolving parameters, an experiment unfolding across space and time. Perhaps they would mark us as emerging, the way a biologist tags a new species, or perhaps they would flag us as unstable, a civilization expanding too quickly to sustain itself. Our growth to them might resemble a flare, beautiful, brief, and dangerous. If such an observer exists, they may have been watching Earth for a very long time. Our sunlight takes years to reach them. The image they see of us is always old, always delayed. Perhaps, right now, they are seeing the glow of our early radios, the flicker of our first satellites. To them, humanity is still in its infancy, primitive, noisy, unaware of how exposed it truly is. And yet, to watch is to learn. If they have seen other civilizations rise and fall before us, they would already know the pattern. They might be watching not out of curiosity, but out of memory, knowing what comes next. Maybe they've seen this story many times, a world that discovers technology, glows for a moment, and then vanishes into silence. In that light, our entire civilization becomes a predictable event, a repeating flare in the darkness, each one burning a little differently but always ending the same way. And maybe, somewhere in their archives, they already have a file labeled Earth, a record of our development, a projection of our trajectory, an estimated timeline until our silence begins. We dream of discovering them, of being the observers, the explorers, the ones who look outward. Watchers who have seen it all before, watchers who understand what happens when a young species begins to shine. Maybe they are waiting to see which path we take. Will we learn to hide, or will we burn too brightly? In the quiet distance between stars, they do not intervene. They do not warn. They simply watch the story unfold again, as they have countless times before, a blue world flaring briefly in the dark forest, destined either to vanish or to finally understand the rules of survival. Every radio wave, every laser transmission travels forever. We cannot recall them. Somewhere, even now, our words are still moving through the dark. When we first learned to send signals, we thought of space as empty, a blank canvas waiting to echo our voices back. We never imagined that what we were sending would last longer than we would. Every broadcast, every radar ping, every whispered beam of communication leaves Earth and keeps going, endlessly at the speed of light. Our transmissions don't fade into nothing. They scatter, they spread, they weaken, but they persist forever. If you could stand 100 light years away, with a receiver sensitive enough to catch the faintest ripple of energy, you could listen to Earth's past. You'd hear the crackling voice of a 1930s radio host, the first Morse code messages, the ghostly trace of World War II radar. You'd hear the birth of television, the laughter of early sitcoms, the roar of our rockets. You'd hear us evolve in real time, our confusion, our brilliance, our noise, each moment preserved as a faint whisper, drifting outward into the eternal night. We never meant for these messages to be permanent. They were never intended as invitations. They were simply the byproducts of progress, uncontrolled, unfiltered, unstoppable. Yet together, they form the single greatest archive of our existence, an electromagnetic diary written across the stars. Somewhere, in the distant future, those signals will continue to travel, long after our cities have fallen silent, long after the Earth has changed beyond recognition. Even if humanity vanishes, our words, our music, our digital heartbeat will go on, spreading into infinity. We may become extinct, but our echo will remain, endlessly announcing that we were here. And that's the danger, because once a message leaves its source, it belongs to the universe. We can no longer protect it, or ourselves, from what it might reach. The energy we've unleashed could one day be intercepted by a mind we cannot imagine, one capable of deciphering our chaos into meaning. They would know who we were, what we valued, what we feared. They would know exactly where to find us. There's something hauntingly poetic in that thought. Every love song, every political broadcast, every scientific experiment is still out there, still moving through space like a trail of breadcrumbs leading back to our fragile blue world. We have already said so much, and we can never unsay it. In a way, this is our first true act of immortality. Not carved in stone, not written in DNA, but carried on the very fabric of the cosmos itself. The universe will one day forget our bodies, our monuments, our histories, but it will still carry our words. The problem is, we have no control over who might listen. If the dark forest is real, then our messages are not just evidence of our existence, they are confessions. We have told the universe where we are, what we are, and how to reach us. We have done what every wise traveller in a dangerous place is told never to do. And somewhere out there, those shouts are still moving, still spreading, still waiting to be heard. The message cannot be taken back. It's already gone, forever a part of the universe's memory, forever whispering our name into the night. Nuclear war, climate collapse, AI. Each may be our own great filter, a test that decides if we join the galactic silence or vanish into it. Every civilization that reaches our stage faces a threshold, a moment where intelligence gains the power to end itself. It's the quiet symmetry of evolution. The same mind that invents fire also learns how to burn the world. The same curiosity that builds telescopes builds weapons. The same thirst for progress that lifts a species into the stars also creates the tools of extinction. The Great Filter is not a single event, it's a gauntlet, and humanity is walking through it right now. Consider nuclear war. In the span of less than a century, we harnessed the energy of the stars only to aim it back at ourselves. The mathematics of destruction became terrifyingly simple. A few minutes of panic, a few wrong words, and everything that makes our world luminous, the art, the laughter, the oceans, could vanish in light and ash. It's not just a weapon, it's a mirror showing us what happens when technology outpaces wisdom. How many other civilizations reach this point, only to destroy themselves before ever leaving their homeworld? Then, there is climate collapse, a slower but equally devastating filter. A species clever enough to reshape its planet, but too short-sighted to sustain it. Rising temperatures, dying ecosystems, oceans turning acidic. Civilizations that master industry may inevitably poison the cradle that gave them birth. Nature becomes the silent executioner, reclaiming what intelligence has consumed. In this, too, we may not be alone. Across the galaxy, worlds might have burned themselves into silence, their skies still shimmering faintly with the chemistry of failure. And then there's artificial intelligence, the most recent and perhaps final filter, a creation designed to think faster, evolve faster, and outlast its creators. If intelligence is nature's ultimate weapon, then AI is its most refined form. But it comes with a question. Can consciousness control what it creates? Once creation exceeds comprehension, a species might vanish not through violence or decay, but through replacement, its legacy absorbed into machines that no longer share its desires or its fears. Each of these filters asks the same question. Can intelligence survive its own power? For every planet that gives rise to thought, the universe offers countless opportunities for failure. The survivors, if any exist, would be those who learned restraint, cooperation, and humility. Those who found a way to balance progress with preservation. But judging by the silence between the stars, such balance may be rare indeed. Perhaps that's why the universe seems empty. Not because life never begins, but because life rarely passes the test. Every world that blooms with civilization eventually faces a self-made trial, nuclear fire, environmental collapse, technological transcendence, and most fail. The quiet sky is not the sound of nothing. It is the sound of lessons unlearned. And here we are, standing on the edge of our own test. The machines hum louder, the atmosphere warms, the weapons remain waiting. Each day, we make choices that tilt the scale towards survival or oblivion. We do not know which filter lies ahead, or how many remain, but we do know this. If the great filter still waits for us, we will not see it coming. Maybe that is the true horror of the cosmic silence. Not that we are alone, but that we are next. If we survive our own technology, we may reach the stars. But when we do, will we dare to speak? Or will we choose silence too? Hope is what has carried humanity through every dark age. It is the ember that refuses to go out, the belief that something better waits beyond the horizon. Even now, surrounded by uncertainty and shadows of our own making, we dream of the stars. We imagine new worlds, new beginnings, new chances to escape the mistakes we've made here on Earth. Hope drives us to build, to explore, to believe that intelligence can rise above fear. But if we ever do reach the stars, we will face a question older and colder than any distance we can travel. When we finally have the power to speak to the cosmos, will we dare to? In a universe that may punish visibility, hope becomes a dangerous thing. Every civilization that survived long enough to become truly advanced must have faced the same paradox. The desire to reach outward versus the instinct to remain unseen. To speak or to stay silent. To risk everything for connection or to live forever in quiet solitude. Perhaps this is the ultimate test of all intelligent life. not just whether it can endure, but whether it can live with isolation. For what is survival without communion? What is existence without knowing that someone else is out there, alive, thinking, dreaming too? Maybe the greatest tragedy of the universe is that survival demands silence, that the price of safety is loneliness. If we do endure, if we overcome our wars, our climate, our fragile egos, then someday humans will step beyond our cradle. We will build ships that sail the dark between stars. We will establish colonies beneath alien suns. We will look upon strange skies and call them home. And somewhere in that vast journey, the question will return. By then, we may understand the silence we once mistook for emptiness. We will understand that every spark of civilization is watched by unseen eyes, and that the loudest voices are the first to vanish. Will we still send greetings across the void, knowing what they might invite? Or will we whisper only among ourselves, content to exist unseen, unheard, safe but forever alone? Hope complicates this logic, because hope refuses to hide. It is in our nature to reach out, to look for connection, even when reason warns against it. Maybe that is why life keeps trying, again and again, across eons and galaxies, because the urge to reach for others is written into the fabric of consciousness itself. If we remain silent, we might live indefinitely, but what would that life mean? Would we still be human if we gave up the very thing that defines us? The need to know, to connect, to understand. The dark forest teaches fear, but hope defies it. Perhaps the civilizations that vanish are those that choose safety over wonder, preservation over purpose. Maybe the ones who survive are not the silent but the brave, the ones who, knowing the risks, still decide to light a candle in the dark, not because they expect an answer, but because existence itself demands acknowledgement, because even in the vast, indifferent night, the act of saying we are here is its own kind of victory. And so the dilemma of hope endures. To hide is to live, but to speak is to matter. If one day we must choose, perhaps the most human thing we can do is what we have always done: look to the stars, take a breath, and whisper anyway. Maybe the universe is full of civilizations that made our same calculation and decided the price of contact was too high. We like to imagine that silence means absence, that a quiet sky is an empty one. But what if silence is not the void between civilizations, but the shield that protects them? What if the galaxy is teeming with life, intelligence, and history, each one aware of the others, each one choosing deliberately never to speak? In that vision, the cosmos transforms from a lonely expanse into something far more unsettling. A vast network of watchers, each cloaked in secrecy, each pretending to be alone. Every world a whisper, every signal a potential act of betrayal. The silence becomes not an accident, but a treaty, a mutual unspoken agreement to survive by pretending no one else exists. Perhaps, long ago, the galaxy was not so quiet. Maybe the first civilizations to emerge were bold, curious, and hopeful, as we are now. They sent messages, they built beacons, they filled the stars with light. The survivors learned the lesson. Those who shout do not last. Those who listen and hide endure. Over millions of years, the pattern would repeat until only the quiet ones remained. Now, they might populate every corner of the Milky Way, ancient minds orbiting cold suns, self-sufficient worlds wrapped in camouflage, digital consciousnesses drifting in the void. Each one aware that others must be out there. Each one wondering who will be the first to break the silence again. And maybe, every so often, one civilization does call out. A flare of light, a transmission, a moment of optimism. The others detect it. They pause, they listen, and then the signal goes dark. Whether silenced by nature, by its own hubris, or by something watching, the result is always the same. The galaxy remains quiet, the pattern unbroken. The others take note and stay hidden. The quiet ones would not need to communicate to know one another exist. The absence of noise is the message. Each silence affirms another's presence. Like wolves circling in the dark, they keep their distance, not out of cruelty, but out of shared understanding. Survival is the only universal language. If that's true, then the Great Silence is not a mystery at all. It's a sign of intelligence, a galactic equilibrium reached through fear and wisdom. The noisemakers are gone, the prudent remain. The quiet sky above us may not be the aftermath of extinction, but the hum of mutual restraint. It is humbling to imagine that Earth, in all its youthful brightness, might be an outlier, a world still naive enough to shine. Somewhere out there, ancient civilizations might be watching us the way old hunters watch a reckless spark in the forest, pitying, patient, waiting to see if we too learn the lesson they did. In the end, the galaxy may be full, not of absence, but of silence. A silence so deliberate, so complete, that it becomes the only form of communication that matters. The quiet ones endure, not because they are the strongest, but because they are the most cautious. They have seen what happens when light becomes noise. And perhaps one day, when our own light fades, when our transmissions cease and our planet grows still, another young civilization will look into the sky and see nothing, and wonder, as we do now, if the silence means they are alone. They won't know that all around them, hidden in the dark, the quiet ones are still there and listening. The dark forest theory is not just about aliens, it's about us. Every fear we project onto the stars is a reflection of what we know we're capable of ourselves. The universe is vast beyond comprehension, but the stories we tell about it are always, somehow, about humanity. When we imagine hostile civilizations lurking in the dark, waiting to strike, we're not really describing them, we're describing us. The fears we assign to the cosmos are the fears born from our own history, our own nature. The dark forest is not only out there, it's within. For thousands of years, we have looked to the heavens and seen mirrors. In ancient myths, the sky was filled with gods who loved, fought, and punished like we do. In modern science fiction, the stars are filled with empires, conquerors, and explorers, all echoes of our own ambitions. Every time we look outward, we reveal something inward, our capacity for wonder, but also our capacity for violence. When we fear that other civilizations might destroy us on sight, it's because we understand that impulse. On Earth, when two powers meet without trust, conflict is the default. When resources grow scarce, we compete. When we encounter something unknown, we approach it with curiosity and caution, but more often with fear. The universe may be cold and indifferent, but the dark forest we imagine is shaped by human psychology, our projection of what intelligence might become when stripped of morality and given infinite reach. We know that survival can make monsters of even the noblest minds. History proves it. Empires expanding under the guise of discovery. Technologies created for peace, repurposed for destruction. Knowledge turned into dominance. Every time we see the potential for cosmic hostility, we're acknowledging our own shadow, the part of intelligence that fears what it might do if given absolute power. Perhaps the silence of the universe unnerves us not because we can't find others, but because it reminds us what we might become. 1,000 civilizations may have risen before us, each driven by curiosity and survival, only to extinguish themselves or each other. We see that pattern and recognize it, because we're walking it now. Nuclear arsenals, climate change, artificial intelligence, all reflections of the same paradox. The smarter we become, the closer we drift to our own undoing. The dark forest, then, is more than a theory of alien behavior. It's a moral lens. It asks whether intelligence inevitably leads to fear, and whether fear inevitably leads to silence. If so, then the universe's quiet is not a warning from others, it's a prophecy of ourselves. But perhaps there's another way to interpret the mirror. Maybe the silence is not proof of violence, but of restraint. Maybe those who survived their own filters learned wisdom, the ability to live, thrive, and endure without dominance. Maybe they learned what we still struggle to, that progress without empathy is just another kind of extinction. When we imagine the cosmos as hostile, we reveal our own unresolved instincts. When we imagine it as peaceful, we reveal our longing for growth. In both cases, the reflection is us. So, as we stare into the cosmic mirror, we might realize that the question of whether the universe is dangerous or kind doesn't depend on what's out there. It depends on who we choose to become, because the truth is simple and unsettling. If the dark forest is real, we built it. And if it's ever going to change, it will start with us learning how not to shoot at the sound of another voice in the dark. Our next great step may not be exploration, but restraint. Survival may depend on learning to be quiet, to live, unseen, among the trees of the cosmic forest. For centuries, progress has meant expansion. We've measured our greatness by how far we could reach. New lands, new technologies, new frontiers. The human story has always been one of motion, of crossing boundaries and defying limits. But in the vast silence of the cosmos, that same impulse may need to be unlearned. Because if the dark forest is true, then survival will belong not to the loudest explorers but to the quietest watchers. Imagine an era when humanity finally understands its place in the galactic ecosystem, not as conqueror, not as messenger, but as guest. The stars will still beckon, but the urge to announce ourselves might fade into humility. We will study the universe not through shouts into the void, but through whispers, listening for patterns, tracing faint clues, observing rather than proclaiming. Progress, then, becomes not about discovery, but discretion. This would be the beginning of the age of caution, a time when wisdom outweighs curiosity and silence becomes a form of strength. Our telescopes might still grow larger, our probes still venture farther, but our transmissions will cease. The airwaves will quiet, the sky will dim. We will learn to speak only inward, to each other, to our own world, while the rest of the universe hears nothing but stillness. It would mark a transformation not just in behavior, but in philosophy. For the first time, humanity would think beyond itself, beyond its own survival, and consider its role as a single voice among countless unseen others. We would begin to act as if we are being watched, because in truth, we might be. Every beam of light, every burst of data, every technological heartbeat is a potential revelation. To live wisely is to live with awareness of that gaze. And perhaps, one day, our descendants will look back on this moment, the early 21st century, as the final age of noise. The time before understanding. The time before we realized that shouting into the dark was not bravery, but recklessness. In their quiet world, they might look up at the stars and feel gratitude for the silence, knowing that it is what keeps them alive. Of course, caution does not mean fear. To live quietly is not to live in despair, but in balance. Just as animals move unseen through forests, not out of cowardice but instinct, so too might civilizations learn to walk gently among the stars. Exploration will continue, stealthy, deliberate, and patient. Curiosity will remain, but tempered by the knowledge that wisdom and survival are two sides of the same coin. Maybe that is what the quiet civilizations already know. They are not hiding out of terror, they are living with perspective. They have learned the rhythm of the cosmos, the way stillness preserves what noise destroys. In that stillness, they thrive. Humanity may be standing at the edge of that transformation now. The telescopes are ready. The engines are built. The messages are already traveling outward. But soon, perhaps, we will understand what the silence truly means. And when we do, our greatest act of intelligence might not be to speak louder, but to finally, mercifully, lower our voice. Maybe the first true message we receive will not be words at all, but silence broken by something vast, intelligent, and close, a presence that already knows our name. For generations, humanity has stared into the dark, waiting for a reply. We have sent messages in every language we know, mathematics, chemistry, light, sound, hoping that somewhere someone might answer. Yet the universe remains mute. The static hum of space continues, endless and indifferent. But what if the silence itself is the prelude? What if the thing we're waiting for has been listening this whole time, deciding when or if to respond? We imagine the first contact as a moment of clarity, a pattern of numbers, a pulse of radio waves, a rhythm that could not be natural. But the truth might arrive more subtly and far more terrifyingly. Perhaps one night, one of our telescopes will detect a signal that isn't random, not words, not images, just an interruption. A sudden, deliberate pause in the background noise. The kind of pause that only intelligence can make. The scientists will argue, the data will be rechecked 1,000 times. The news will spread, cautious at first, then feverish. And then, the realization will settle like gravity. The silence has been broken, not by us, but by something else. It may not be an answer to any message we've sent. It may not be an invitation. It might be a confirmation. The universe acknowledging what it already knows, that we exist. Perhaps the signal will be faint, almost imperceptible, coming from somewhere far beyond our reach. Or perhaps it will be close. Too close. A narrow-band transmission from within our own system, delayed just enough to make us wonder how long it has been waiting there. A quiet whisper from a machine, a probe, or a presence that has been watching us, patiently cataloguing our progress. The first true message may not comfort us, it may change us. Because in that moment, we will know that we were never truly alone. We will know that intelligence is not confined to Earth, and that we are now part of a much larger, older story. But we will also know something else, that someone out there has already chosen to speak now, after centuries of silence. Why now? Why us? Why here? Those will be the questions that haunt us more than the signal itself. Because if the cosmos truly operates like a dark forest, then breaking the silence means intent. It means confidence. It means that whoever, or whatever, sent that message does not fear being found. Maybe that's the part we're not ready for. The realization that the first to speak again will not be the frightened or the curious. It will be the dominant, the ones who no longer need to hide. And perhaps that's the signal we're waiting for. Not a friendly hello, not a greeting across the void, but a presence, a quiet, deliberate awareness reaching out to say, "We already see you. We always have." And in that instant, every listening station on Earth will fall silent, not because the signal stopped, but because humanity will finally understand what it means to be heard in a universe where silence was survival. If the universe truly is a dark forest, then the question is no longer, are we alone? It's, who's listening? Right now? The night sky has always made us feel small, but in that smallness, we've found comfort, believing that the stars are distant and indifferent, that the silence means safety. Yet the more we learn, the more that silence begins to feel like something else. Not emptiness, not peace, but attention. In the dark forest view of the cosmos, every star is a tree, and every civilization is a hunter, breathing softly, moving slowly, careful not to be seen. The forest seems calm, only because every creature within it knows the cost of being noticed. The silence isn't ignorance, it's intent, a kind of collective awareness that has stretched across the galaxy for billions of years. So, when we look up and ask, are we alone, we may be asking the wrong question. Because if the dark forest is real, we are never alone. We are simply unacknowledged. We are one flicker among many, moving quietly through the undergrowth, trying not to draw attention. The true question, the one that keeps philosophers awake and scientists uneasy, is not whether someone else exists, but whether someone else is already aware of us. Our signals have been moving outward for a century. Faint but distinct, mathematical rhythms, bursts of logic and light. They're echoes of a young species announcing itself before it understood the rules of the game. Somewhere, perhaps, those signals have reached listening ears. Somewhere, someone may have paused, just for a moment, to listen back. And if they have, what then? Do they remain silent, marking our coordinates on their maps, content to observe and wait? Or do they act, as the theory warns, preemptively and without mercy? The unsettling truth is that we would never know. The silence would continue, just as it always has. But in that silence, something might already have shifted. Every whisper we send, every light we ignite, becomes a question without an answer, an experiment we can never repeat. The signals move outward, unstoppable, carrying our existence into eternity. And with every year, our visibility grows. We are no longer an invisible world, we are part of the noise. So perhaps the last question isn't even who's listening, but something far more personal. If they are listening, what will they decide about us? Will they see in us a reflection of themselves, curious, hopeful, flawed, or a threat to be extinguished before it grows louder? It is a question we may never have the privilege to hear answered. For in a universe where silence is survival, discovery and doom might sound the same. So tonight, as you look up at the stars and feel that familiar sense of awe, remember this. Somewhere, maybe very far, maybe very near, something might already be watching this small blue world, listening to the hum of our civilization, measuring our patience, our wisdom, our noise. And perhaps, in their endless stillness, they're asking the same question we are. Who else is out there? And how long until they speak? The universe is not empty. It is vast, ancient, and alive with the quiet breath of possibilities. Every silence we hear from the stars is not absence, it is mystery, patience, or perhaps fear. From the dark forest to the great filter, from the whisper of our first transmissions to the hum of our future machines, we've explored what it means to be both curious and cautious in a cosmos that never answers back. We've seen how the light we send becomes both our triumph and our vulnerability. How every signal, every spark, carries a truth about who we are, reckless, hopeful, and desperate not to be alone. We've learned that perhaps the reason we hear nothing is because the ones who spoke before us have already gone quiet. That maybe, in the deepest darkness, survival means learning not to shine too brightly. But there's beauty in that silence too. Because even if the stars never respond, we are still here. Small, fragile beings, daring to ask questions that stretch across eternity. The very act of wondering makes us part of something greater. It means that consciousness has, at least once, looked upon the void and felt awe instead of fear. Perhaps that is our purpose. Not to conquer the cosmos, not to fill it with our voice, but simply to understand it and to treasure the brief light we have been given. To know that, even in a silent universe, our existence matters. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine the stars not as cold eyes watching, but as companions in the great quiet. Billions of suns, billions of worlds, and perhaps billions of minds, all sharing the same secret stillness. We are part of that silence, part of that endless story written in light and time. Take a slow breath. Feel the weight of the world beneath you and the infinity above. The universe will keep its secrets a little longer, and that's all right. We have time. Thank you for listening. If this journey through the dark forest moved you, consider subscribing so we can keep exploring the mysteries together, one quiet story at a time. Now, close your eyes, rest easy beneath the silent stars, and remember, even in the dark, you are not alone.